England face Mexico, Kane hype, and Azteca pressure in one brutal knockout trap. Who controls this tie? England's stars or Mexico City? Tuchel talks chapters, Reece James is doubtful, Mexico return luxury watches. Tablo Sports starts with Kane, the Azteca, and the last 16 pressure point. The first story sets the temperature for the whole episode. England are walking into a knockout game where the venue is not background scenery, it is part of the contest. Mexico versus England last 16 build-up centers on Kane and Azteca altitude. The lazy version of this preview is Kane versus Mexico, as if one elite striker automatically solves a night like this. What matters more is whether England can play clean, controlled football when the Azteca crowd, the altitude, and the knockout clock all start squeezing them. Mexico benefit if the match becomes emotional and broken, because co-host energy can turn ordinary duels into little storms. England benefit only if they treat the occasion like a football problem, not a mythology exam. Al Jazeera is billing this as Mexico versus England in the FIFA World Cup last 16, and the build-up is circling around Harry Kane, predictions, and the altitude challenge at the Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. So let us be clear on this. This is not a group stage warm-up, and it has not already been played. This is knockout football, with a co-host on home soil and England trying to keep their tournament from becoming another expensive lesson in pressure management. Kane is the obvious headline because he remains the player every England attack eventually has to answer to. If England are calm, he can connect phases, occupy center backs, and turn one half chance into a match-defining moment. But the Azteca is not neutral in the way a spreadsheet is neutral. High altitude changes breathing, tempo, recovery, and decision-making. A pass that looks simple after 10 minutes can look heavier after 70, especially if Mexico keep dragging England into sprints they did not want. The fan debate is already exactly where you would expect it. Can England handle the hostile crowd and the venue, or does the match become one of those nights where the noise starts tackling players before Mexico do? Look, England have enough quality to win this. Nobody serious is pretending otherwise. The danger is that the bigger name on paper can become the team with more to lose, and Mexico will know that every minute without an England breakthrough makes the Azteca feel smaller, louder, and nastier. That brings us straight to Thomas Tuchel, because a match like this is also a management test before it is a tactical board. The words matter, but only if they keep the dressing room from chasing ghosts. Tuchel says England are at the Azteca to write their own chapter against Mexico. Tuchel is trying to take the romance out of the occasion, without insulting the occasion. That is harder than it sounds, because England's World Cup history tends to walk into rooms before the current players do. The important bit is not whether his phrase sounds good in a press conference, it is whether England play like a team with a plan once the first wave of Mexican pressure hits. A gear keeping Mexico grounded is just as important, because co-host emotion can become fuel or a trap. The Guardian reports that Tuchel said England are at the Azteca to write our own chapters against World Cup co-hosts Mexico. That is a neat line, and it is also a deliberate one. He is not feeding the old revenge machine cliché, and the reporting we have does not say he used the hand of God as motivation. He is trying to keep this about the present. This England squad, this Mexico team, this last 16 tie, this stadium. Here is the important bit. Tuchel also said it is impossible to fully adapt to Mexico City altitude in a short time, while saying England's players are coping. That is a very coach-like sentence, because it admits the problem without handing the opposition a psychological trophy. If he says the altitude is no issue, he sounds unserious. If he makes it the whole story, he gives his players an excuse before kickoff. Javier Aguirre on the Mexico side is also trying to keep El Tri grounded. That detail matters. When a co-host reaches a knockout night at the Azteca, the country can start writing a script before the players have touched the ball. The best managers in these games are not just choosing fullbacks and pressing triggers, they are managing the emotional thermostat. If either side lets the occasion do the thinking, the match can run away from them before the first tactical adjustment. From the manager's message to the team sheet anxiety, England's right side now has a real question attached to it. And this is not the kind of injury update you can wave away as noise. Reece James doubtful for Mexico tie, but Jarell Quansah fit again. Reece James being doubtful is not just a personnel issue, it changes how brave England can be on one flank. The mistake would be turning this into a Chelsea injury soap opera, because the World Cup consequence is much bigger than club frustration. Jarell Quansah being fit again gives Tuchel a useful defensive boost, but it does not answer every structural question. If England gamble on fitness and get it wrong, Mexico will find that weakness very quickly. BBC Sport reports that Reece James missed training on the eve of England's World Cup last 16 tie against Mexico, making him doubtful. The key word is doubtful, not ruled out. This is not done yet, and it is not confirmed lineup news. But the timing is brutal, because losing or limiting James before a high-pressure match at altitude affects more than one position on a graphic. James, currently at Chelsea, gives England power, delivery, recovery pace, and that rare ability to look comfortable when the game is not comfortable. If he is not available, or if he is only half available, Tuchel has to decide whether to change shape, protect that channel, or trust another option to handle Mexico's wide pressure. England fans debating whether to risk him are not being dramatic. They are reacting to a real tactical hinge. The better news is that Jarell Quansah is reported fit again and available. That gives England another defensive body and more flexibility, which matters when the match could stretch late. Still, Quansah's availability does not cancel out the James doubt. Put it this way, one fitness boost helps the squad, but one uncertain fullback or wingback can still change the entire rhythm of a knockout plan. And while England are dealing with fitness questions, Mexico have had an off-field distraction of their own. This one sounds ridiculous at first, which is usually when football's rulebook quietly walks into the room. Mexico returned luxury watches gifted by YouTuber before England match. The watch story is not about celebrity gossip, it is about tournament governance hitting a co-host before a huge match. Mexico returning the gifts matters because expensive gestures around national teams are never just harmless vibes once FIFA rules are involved. The overreaction would be calling this a scandal without confirmed sanctions. The underreaction would be pretending a $1 million gift story creates zero distraction on match day. BBC Sport reports that Mexico returned luxury watches gifted by content creator Steve Wildoit because FIFA rules prohibit expensive gifts. Reports describe the watches as luxury gifts worth around $1 million in total. The co-hosts play England at Mexico City's Azteca Stadium on Sunday evening local time, according to BBC reporting, which makes the timing very awkward for Mexico. So let us be careful with the source status. The reporting says the watches were returned. That is not the same as saying Mexico have been formally sanctioned, and we should not invent punishment that has not been confirmed. But it is still a bad look before a last 16 match. You do not want your pre-game conversation to include FIFA gift rules, a YouTuber, and luxury watches when Harry Kane and England are already standing at the gate. Fans are arguing whether this was harmless gifting or a clear rules problem, and honestly, that split is predictable. Football has a magical ability to take something that should be simple and dress it in enough weirdness to make everyone suspicious. The concrete point is this: Mexico did not keep the gifts, the match is still the main event, and the co-hosts now have one more unnecessary storyline attached to the biggest night of their tournament. The match environment is not only about altitude and noise either. Weather has entered the conversation, and that makes the logistics around England versus Mexico even more delicate. Storm threats and kickoff questions hang over England's last 16 tie in Mexico. Weather risk should not be treated like an official delay until organizers say so. At the same time, storm threats are not decorative details when players are already dealing with altitude in a hostile knockout setting. The real issue is rhythm, warm-ups, waiting, crowd energy, and whether either team is forced into a disrupted start. England cannot control the sky, but they can control whether uncertainty turns into panic. Sky Sports has framed the issue around how storms hitting Mexico could delay England's last 16 tie, while WION has put booze, storm threats, and altitude together in the build-up to the World Cup clash. Here is the important caution. The evidence supports weather as a possible risk, not an official delay. Do not treat a forecast like a final decision from tournament organizers. Still, the concern is real because knockout preparation is built on routine. Players time meals, travel, activation, strapping, mental work, and warm-ups with absurd precision. If storms start threatening that rhythm, the effect is not only physical. It creates waiting, and waiting before a match like Mexico versus England can be nasty. The brain starts playing extra minutes before the referee has even checked the ball. The Azteca altitude remains the performance variable underneath everything. Add storm uncertainty, possible kickoff questions, and a crowd ready to turn every delay into another surge of noise, and this becomes a test of patience as much as quality. Supporters are frustrated because nobody wants a last 16 tie defined by weather management. But if the conditions shift, the team that stays colder mentally may get the first real advantage. Elsewhere, the bracket gives us a very different kind of last 16 drama. Brazil against Norway and New Jersey is not about altitude. It is about whether a dream run can survive a heavyweight attack. Brazil faced Norway's dream run in New Jersey in World Cup last 16. The easy marketing poster is Haaland versus Vinicius, and yes, that sells itself. The sharper question is whether Norway can turn a star-led surge into a full knockout performance against Brazil. Brazil's reputation helps them until it becomes pressure, because every minute without control makes the outsider story stronger. Norway cannot win the narrative, they have to win the spaces Brazil leave behind. Business Standard says Brazil are looking to end Norway's dream run in New Jersey, while Al Jazeera bills Brazil versus Norway as a FIFA World Cup last 16 match featuring Vinicius and Haaland. That is the right frame. This is a knockout fixture, not a group stage meeting, and Brazil have not already advanced. They still have to play the match in front of them. The fan conversation is treating Haaland versus Vinicius as a marquee showdown, and it is not hard to see why. Haaland gives Norway a direct threat that can make even a cautious game feel dangerous. Vinicius gives Brazil the kind of 1v1 electricity that can turn a balanced match into a chase scene. If either player gets isolated against the wrong defender, the whole tactical preview can burn in about 4 seconds. Norway are pursuing a rare deep World Cup run after a long absence from the tournament spotlight, and that matters because dream runs get heavier as they go. At first, the outsider is playing with freedom. Then the country starts believing, the world starts watching, and suddenly the underdog has something to protect. Brazil know that feeling from the other side. They are expected to be Brazil every single time, which sounds glamorous until one mistake becomes a national conversation. Meanwhile, one heavyweight has already found a way through, even if the aftertaste is not exactly clean. France are into the quarterfinals, and the argument did not stop at the final whistle. Mbappe penalty sends France past Paraguay and into World Cup quarterfinals. France got the result they needed, but this was not the kind of win that ends debate. Mbappe's penalty is the concrete fact. The wider reaction is about how far Paraguay pushed the edge of the contest. The danger for France is that a narrow, ill-tempered win can hide performance questions behind relief. The benefit is obvious. Survive the last 16, and you earn the right to fix problems while still in the tournament. Kylian Mbappe, currently with Real Madrid, scored the decisive 70th-minute penalty as France beat Paraguay 1-0 in an ill-tempered World Cup last 16 tie. Sky Sports says the result set up a quarterfinal meeting with Morocco. That is the bracket consequence. France are through, Paraguay are out, and Mbappe's penalty from the spot is the moment that separates the two. Fans and pundits are arguing over whether Paraguay's tactics crossed the line. That is where this match is living now, not just in the scoreline. But again, caution matters. We should not state that FIFA has punished Paraguay unless that is confirmed. What we can say is that the tone of the game has become part of the reaction, and France advancing has not stopped people picking through the details. For France, the positive is brutally simple. They are in the last 8. Tournament football does not hand out bonus points for beauty, moral clarity, or making neutrals feel warm inside. Still, a 1-0 win built on a penalty leaves a different feeling from a dominant statement. Real Madrid forward Mbappe delivered the decisive act, France move on to Morocco, and the next match will ask whether this was a gritty step forward or a warning with a winning scoreline. That France quarterfinal opponent is now confirmed, and Morocco arrive with force. Canada's tournament, meanwhile, has hit the wall in Houston. Morocco beat co-hosts Canada 3-0 to reach World Cup quarterfinals. Morocco should not be framed as a cute surprise every time they win a serious match. A 3-0 last 16 victory over a co-host is not a postcard, it is a statement with consequences. Canada's exit will spark a fair debate about what success means for a host nation. The harder truth is that Morocco looked like the team ready for the next level. Sky Sports reports that Morocco beat Canada 3-0 in Houston to reach the World Cup quarterfinals. Azzedine Ounahi scored twice before Soufiane Rahimi added Morocco's third, making Canada the first co-host to exit. The scoreline is clean, the consequence is sharp, and there is no way to dress it up for Canada. They are out of the tournament. Reaction is split between praise for Morocco and debate over whether Canada's campaign was a success. That debate is not pointless. Co-hosts carry a strange burden because progress is judged emotionally as much as competitively. A nation can grow, connect with new supporters, and still lose heavily when the knockout standard arrives. Both things can be true, even if one of them hurts more on the night. Morocco, though, deserve the focus here. Ounahi's double and Rahimi's third did not just send them through, it set up the quarterfinal against France. That is a serious football match, not a nostalgia slot or a feel-good sequel. Morocco are no longer sneaking up on anyone, and that may be the biggest compliment available. Opponents now know the danger is real before the first whistle. Now to a story with longer-term impact, because not every World Cup headline is about the team still alive. Australia are out, and the Federation has moved quickly to control the fallout. Football Australia backs Tony Popovich after World Cup exit. Federation backing after elimination is always part support, part message management. Tony Popovich has not resigned, and the reporting does not say Football Australia has opened a formal search. The real tension is whether public criticism fades or hardens once fans replay the Egypt decisions. Backing a coach is easy in a statement. Living with the next campaign is the expensive part. ESPN reports that Football Australia has backed Tony Popovich after Australia's World Cup exit. SBS also says the Federation backed the brave coach amid criticism of his calls against Egypt. The key facts are simple. Australia went out in the knockout stage after the Egypt match, Popovich remains backed, and there is no confirmed resignation or formal search based on the reporting we have. Socceroos fans are debating Popovich's goalkeeper and tactical decisions, which is exactly what happens when a tournament ends and everyone gets access to slow-motion hindsight. Some criticism will be emotional, some may be fair. The uncomfortable part for any federation is separating disappointment from evidence. If every exit becomes a firing contest, you get chaos. If every exit gets waved away as bravery, you get complacency wearing a tracksuit. Football Australia's backing buys Popovich time, but it does not erase the questions. The next phase will decide whether this is genuine confidence or a public shield while internal reviews happen behind closed doors. Put it this way, if the federation believes the process was right, it has to defend more than the manager's character. It has to defend the football decisions that sent Australia out against Egypt. The final story is softer, but it still says something about the tournament around the matches. Not every World Cup moment is a tactical argument. Some are about what the event does to people who arrive ready to be cynical. Traveling World Cup fan breaks down in tears and admits he was wrong about USA I fell in love. Yahoo Sports UK. This is not a competitive football update, so it should not be treated like one. The value is cultural. A traveling fan admits he misjudged the USA and became emotionally attached to the experience. That kind of story can be sentimental, yes, but World Cups are partly built on exactly that sentiment. The risk is overselling one fan's reaction as proof of everything, when it is really a single human snapshot. Yahoo Sports UK carries the story of a traveling World Cup fan breaking down in tears and admitting he was wrong about the USA. saying, "I fell in love." The source package gives us that core detail and not much more, so we should not stretch it into a grand tournament thesis that the facts do not support. It is one fan's reaction, not a stadium-wide referendum. Still, there is something real in it. World Cups are strange machines. They sell elite competition, then ambush people with cities, strangers, noise, food, public transport confusion, and one random conversation that somehow becomes the memory they keep. A fan arriving with doubts and leaving in tears is not a tactical subplot, but it is part of why this event keeps overpowering people who thought they were too cool for it. The funny bit is that football spends half its time pretending to be sophisticated and the other half proving it can reduce a grown adult to tears outside a stadium because the trip felt bigger than expected. That does not decide Mexico versus England, Brazil versus Norway, or France versus Morocco, but it does explain why the World Cup can still punch through cynicism, one supporter at a time. That is the World Cup picture right now. England have a brutal Azteca test against Mexico, France and Morocco are already on a quarterfinal collision course, Brazil face Norway's dream run, and Australia are managing the consequences of an exit. The lesson is not complicated. Big names matter, but conditions, decisions, injuries, rules, and pressure often decide who survives when the bracket stops being polite.